So she's saying it's your loved one's crap.
Yep.
And it's consistent. How do you let it go?
Yep. How do you let it go?
How do you separate it?
They keep piling their crap on you. This is how you let it go. You just love.
Just love on them.
Love.
So, okay.
Go ahead. We probably should turn the cameras on, though.
They
are on.
And the microphones are on, too.
Yeah. Run with it.
And the lights are on. Set.
Yeah. Woohoo. Do you want me to read the question?
Well, we have to do our introduction.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'll read the question.
And then you say, hey, we did our last podcast was on owning your own stuff and letting go.
Yeah.
Letting go of all the crap.
Yeah.
And we had a response from an avid listener.
A raving fan.
A raving fan has asked us a question.
Asked us a question, so we thought we'd just use this as the answer.
Hi, my name is Doug, and this is Don. We are the Cool Dudes Podcast.
A Laughing Horse production.
And we are excited to be talking to you today because we're going to follow up on our last podcast when we talked about getting rid of your stuff, eliminating your stuff, lightening the load, enjoying life, and all these wonderful things. So tonight, we have a question.
We do. One of our avid followers sent us a question. A really good question.
Yep.
So we thought we would address that in tonight's podcast.
Yes.
The question is, how does trust work with letting go of your crap if it's a loved one's consistent and repeated negative behavior?
Right. So in our last podcast, we did call it crap.
Yes, it is crap.
It's crap. We carry. So a quick review.
Garbage.
Yeah, garbage. We
carry
carry around a lot of garbage. We take on a lot of stuff, and then we hold on to it. And we should let it go. We should let it go because it makes us feel better, allows us the opportunity then to increase our capacity for joy, for happiness, and just live that life of peace and contentment that we all desire.
Yes. That's a great summary.
That was. It only took us 2 hours to 40 minutes to deliver that.
Right.
We just did it in 2 minutes.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. So go ahead and get us started. How does trust play in this?
Well, number one is you have to separate. It's a two-part question, really. Even though it sounds like one, it's a two-part question.
Right.
One is about trust, and then one is about other people's stuff.
Right. Yep,
So,
exactly.
So we're talking about a loved one. So obviously it's a family member, somebody you care about, significant other, whatever, and you love them and you want to trust them. So trust is built by the efforts and the deeds and the things that are going on within the relationship being consistent and being in a certain way that you can count on that person.
Right. Exactly.
So that's where trust is built in over longer period of time. Obviously, the more trust.
Right.
So,
or lack of trust.
Or lack of trust. Yeah.
And how you internalize it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So trust is like on a scale pretty much all the time.
Right, right.
You said you were going to the store, but you didn't go to the store. Trust drops.
I needed the milk.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. And so we find that based on what's going on, trust is a separate issue.
Right.
So, but typically if you're in an abusive situation, then you're going to feel like you can't trust that person.
Right.
You may trust them on other levels,
Right.
but if they're being abusive in an area, then in that area, you're probably not going to trust them. In fact, you're probably going to have a big wall up, a big guard up. You're probably going to feel like you're walking on eggshells. In your mind, you're thinking, boy, I hope they're not going to explode.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully everything maintains where they want it.
Yeah.
So with that, you're going to have to work on, I guess this is a cliche that says, do what you say and say what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Or say what you do what you say.
Yeah. I'm just going with you on it.
So basically,
I just can't wait to see where you're going with this.
So trust is if you say you're going to do something, then go do it.
Yeah. Be true to what you say. Be true to your word.
Yeah. Be true to your word, and you have to build on trust. Which you're going to have to sit down and talk with your significant other, your loved one, and have some self-discovery.
Right.
and
Right.
and be willing to
And-
take ownership of the areas where you're probably lacking.
and not and be willing to not own their stuff.
Yeah, now that's the other side of the coin,
Right,
isn't it?
exactly. Yeah.
So, number
Yeah.
one, if you're in an abusive situation and you need help, we're telling you go get help.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely.
This is a
Yeah.
podcast. We love doing this, but if you're being hurt, if you're in danger, go get the help now.
Yep,
Get some
absolutely.
authorities in there. Get them to help you. Get yourself in a safe environment.
Right. Yes.
So, because if you don't, probably won't get to see our podcast much. But
And that would be sad.
that would be sad. And I'm not making light of that. I'm very serious when I
Yes.
say that.
Absolutely. Yes.
But on the other hand, if it's abuse or it's somebody exercising control over you
Mm-hmm.
and they do it with fear, then what? Now how do you control this?
Good question.
Yeah.
That is a really good question.
I'm going to let you answer it.
You're gonna let me answer it. Wow. Yeah, I mean, if it's all about control, again, it's their issue.
Mhm.
So the first thing that needs to happen is stop taking their issues on as if they're your own,
Right.
because you can't. So again, it's not abusive. You're not your physical
Well-being.
well-being
is-
is not in jeopardy. Stop taking on their crap.
Mhm.
It's their crap,
Yeah. So
and the other thing too is, I mean, sometimes it's how we perceive what's being directed towards us.
yeah.
So what am I perceiving, and does that really fit
Yeah.
with the person? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm about ready to sneeze.
Oh, okay. Oh, standing back. So
man. Okay.
So there's that aspect of it, but I mean, it's all emotionally charged,
Mhm.
every bit of it, and really, it boils down to rules and boundaries in a large way. Rules can be adjusted, and if it's not working for you, then adjust the rule.
Mhm.
But if it's a boundary, boundaries are solid.
Mhm.
They are there in place to protect and to make sure that you stay consistent as a person yourself.
Okay. So what you're telling me then is, number one, it's their stuff.
Right.
So you're gonna have to segment their stuff, your stuff,
Yep.
their stuff, your
And
stuff.
the easiest way to do that is to just evaluate it. I mean, I've been in situations where people are trying to put their stuff on me, and I evaluate it. And really, the question I ask myself is, do I need to own any of this? Is any of this mine to own? And if there's something there that's mine to own, I'll accept that, because that's my crap, that's my
Yeah.
stuff. But if it's not, then I just refuse to take on their issues.
And so, and even if you say that's your problem,
Yep.
you deal with it.
Yep.
When
Yeah.
you've calmed down,
Yeah.
when you're in control, and you want to talk about your issues, great, come to me, then
Yep.
we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Once you're ready to take ownership, because when people aren't taking ownership, they're the victim. They come across as the victim, and they blame you or someone else or something else for
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yep.
And
So-
and it's their crap, and you can never resolve it. Not in 100 years.
Yeah.
You won't resolve it, because it's their crap. It's their emotion, not your emotion.
Their issues, and it's probably been brought up through their entire life.
Right.
So what happens if you have the situation where they just keep going and going and going? So you say, this is your crap, stop it. I'm not taking on your crap, but they keep coming at you. They keep verbally coming at you, or they keep pushing you because they want to see you get to your breaking point.
Right.
So how do you stop that kind of
Then that's
crap?
that's a pattern that they're running, because they want the desired effect, right? And so when it comes to that, really, I mean, you have to interrupt the pattern.
So
So how do you do that?
kick them in the nuts.
Can you say that on a podcast?
I think so. I don't know. Hit them on the end of the nose.
Yeah,
I mean, what
yeah.
is it?
I mean,
what does it take to interrupt the pattern?
Yeah, well, it has to shock.
Yeah.
It has to be something that is out of character.
Yeah.
Something that's not normal, because they run this pattern or this cycle because they don't want to, they're not taking ownership of something. And so they build this pattern of when they're not going to take ownership, they run this pattern to try and get you to take ownership because in the past you have. And when you do that, then you excuse them from having to take care of their own bad behavior.
Right.
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 And so they're not wanting to correct their own bad behavior. They want to justify their own bad behavior. And so you have to interrupt that pattern, and
Yeah.
and you have to do that through a way that would shock them. It's just completely different.
Yeah.
You know.
So you'd have to figure that out.
I would never, suggest that violence would be a good way to do it.
No, I wouldn't suggest that.
But
either.
if your knuckles ended up with their blood on them, that might
That
interrupt the
might
pattern.
interrupt the pattern.
Because then you at least didn't kick him in the nuts.
Right. Yeah.
So
So yeah, but
Can't believe
interrupting
you
the
said that.
I know but I mean sometimes you have to look at the situation as long as you're
Yeah.
not in harm's way.
but that's a great example of
Okay.
interrupting the pattern.
Yeah.
So in any of our other podcasts, we've never said anything like that.
We
and
haven't?
I'm sure one of those three people that were watching our podcast just went, did they just say what? Well, that's a pattern interrupt right there.
Right.
Is an and I appreciate you providing that example.
Well, of course.
of a pattern interrupt. And that is a pattern interrupt. Because honestly, I wasn't expecting it, and I felt myself going, "Ooh, he said the
said that.
N word, the other N word." So
So it is a pattern interrupt.
Right.
And as long as you're not in physical danger,
Right.
then you can interrupt patterns. There's a number of ways.
right,
Like,
and that was a perfect. Really, it was a perfect example of how to interrupt a pattern.
yeah.
It, I mean, doesn't have to be violent. It
No.
just has to be completely different because it shocks you at an unconscious level, tells the unconscious mind that
That didn't
we're
work.
not. Yeah, wait a minute, they've never done that before. It causes you to go inside at an unconscious level and evaluate and and your unconscious mind comes to the realization that, you know what, that was different than all the other times.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not okay.
Maybe this isn't how it's supposed
Yeah,
to be
and,
done.
and you'll have to do it probably at least 3 or 4 times. Some
Yep.
type of a pattern interrupt.
Yeah. Anytime they start to do it, it's kind of like training a horse, right?
Yeah.
As soon as it
Yeah.
starts to do the bad thing, you have to interrupt it. As soon as it starts doing the good thing, you pet it.
Yeah.
Say, nice horse.
Don't try a pattern interrupt with a cow because they just
Yeah,
they don't get it.
Yeah, they're not smart enough.
I would say they're dumb as a box of rocks, but that would not be nice to the rocks.
This is the rocks. So number one is trust is a separate issue from what we're talking about of changing this pattern,
Yeah.
changing their stuff. So if I get this right, just kind of a nice little recap.
Yep.
Is we've been at this here and we're about finishing it up, wrapping it up.
Okay,
Does that work?
we sure.
Hopefully we've answered the question.
That was another pattern interrupt. Good job.
So trust.
Yep.
Might have to sit down and have a nice self-awareness.
Yep.
What's going on to cause the mistrust.
Right.
And if they're involved in some abusive patterns,
Right.
then obviously that mistrust could come from that,
Right.
could stem from
Yep.
that.
Yep.
So we've given a really simple question sometimes to complex feelings. Oh, one thing I was going to say, talking about that,
Yes.
is that there's really only 2 things that we stress over. We have stress in our life.
Right.
And once we understand this, and we can kind of separate the two. One is we only stress over something physical. So
Right.
something's happening outside in our environment.
Right.
Like somebody ran into my car, that's stressful. I'm hungry, I need some food, that's stressful. There's a person that I've interacted with and I don't want to see them and I see them, that's stressful.
Right.
Somebody's being abusive to me, that's stressful. So that's on the outside world to our physical body and we find that stressful.
Right.
The other part is mental. And there's only 2 areas that we're stressed out in. And the other mental one is trust. How can I trust this person if they're
If they
causing
can-
me
yeah.
physical
Yep.
stress?
They continue to do this
Yeah.
over and over.
Yeah, so you can separate. So as you start to separate and pull all this apart, you can say, you know what, there's some physical stress because they're causing me physical stress by pushing. So relax your body and define, is this mine or is this yours?
Right.
Separate it,
Yep.
give them theirs back, and then realize that as long as your body is not in harm, like they're not going to hit you, then you can say, okay, now let's talk about the mental, because you're putting pressure on me to behave a certain way that I typically don't behave.
Right. Yep.
So you can tell them, get lost.
Right. Right. Yeah. Take a hike.
Take a hike.
Yeah.
Emotionally is what I'm talking about.
yeah.
You can say, no, this is yours. And this is where the pattern interrupt
Right.
happens, is at this
Right.
point, you interrupt the pattern. You say, that is yours. No longer acceptable. Here's the
Yep.
boundary. Here's how I'm living. If you cross it, you're going to get in the, but I'm not going to do
In the
that.
pattern interrupt. I'll kick you in the pattern interrupt.
Kick you in the pattern interrupt. So you can work through that.
Right.
Now, hopefully, the person that you love and all that kind of stuff will sit down and
Yeah.
talk, because that's what people
Well, it's
do.
it's the only way you fix it.
Yeah.
And again, if there's physical danger, get help.
Get help.
Don't
Serious.
stay in a unsafe environment.
Yeah.
You know, and the other thing too is, again, you just have to refuse to take on the other person's issues.
Right.
And you may have to say, look, that is your issue. I am not taking it on as mine.
Right.
That's yours. You fix it.
Yeah. You're going to
You
fix
know.
this.
And they'll probably get mad, get angry, and they'll try and put more pressure on you
Mm-hmm.
through name calling or whatever it might be to take on their crap.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way you can take on their crap is if you allow it.
Yeah.
And you just don't allow it. And part of how you don't allow it is you don't internalize it.
Yeah.
Because once you internalize it, then your emotion is, well, then you're trying to resolve their emotion.
Right.
Because when it's their crap, it's wrapped up in their emotion. And we all, yeah, I mean, we all experience the same emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
You experience happiness, I experience happiness. You know, you experience, you know, pleasure, I
Mm-hmm.
experience pleasure. But my emotion of pleasure is based around my
Right.
person.
Yeah, it's all
your
different.
emotion of pleasure is based around you as a person, your life experiences, and all of that. And even though, you know, maybe we both, you know, when we experience that emotion, we laugh or we have the same responses, still different.
Right.
And it's designed around me. And so when I take on other people's crap, I'm also taking on that crap that's theirs, and it's wrapped in their emotion.
Yeah.
And then because of the way our mind works, it tries to solve or fix.
And it can't
so
do it.
and so we start trying to do that. We can't fix it because we don't understand it, because it's not our emotion.
Yeah.
And then we become frustrated.
Right. So I have a story, and then we'll wrap this up, because we're
Okay.
trying to keep these under 2 hours.
Yeah, and we've still got 20 minutes.
Okay.
So talk slow.
Talk slow. We are.
The sloth story.
I know. We watched Zootopia. It's dark outside. It's funny.
That is a funny show.
It is. Oh, squirrel. So the story is I once had a person in my life that loved to be in chaos all the time. And so the relationship was in chaos. And it would get heated chaos, you know,
Right.
where the words flying back and forth were not nice. But we had been studying some of this stuff, and I realized I can control my stuff. I can control me. I can't control the other person.
Yep.
I can
Yep.
control my emotions. I
Yep.
can figure out my problems. I can deal with my issues. I'm more than happy to do that. I can take ownership of my issues and my problems and all this stuff, and then I can move myself forward.
Right.
Well, this person, we were in this heated discussion, and they said, "You're mad," and I remember doing a check internally.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was just something that clicked in me, and I did an internal check, and I went, "No, I'm not mad." In my head, I'm going, "No, I'm not mad," and that must have came through on my face, because they said, "You're mad," and I said, "No, I'm not mad. I'm not mad at all. In fact, I'm not even raising my voice." "Well, you need to stop yelling at me." I'm like, "I'm not yelling, and I'm not mad." "You're always mad." So they're pushing me, pushing,
Right.
pushing,
right.
pushing,
Wanting
pushing.
you to own
their stuff.
crap,
Yeah.
so they can justify their bad behavior.
Right, wanting me to go to a certain point
Yeah.
where then they could see, I told you so.
Yeah.
Or see, this is how it always is with you, type
Right.
of a situation. And so I remember going, no, I'm not, I don't feel that way. And they pushed and pushed and pushed, and finally I stopped and said, I don't feel that way. If you want to know how I feel, this is how I feel. I feel sad that this is our relationship.
Yeah.
And then I started really to take ownership of what was going on and giving them back their stuff.
Their stuff,
And I
yep.
said, this is a very sad day for me to realize that this is part of our relationship. I no longer want a part of this part of our relationship. And I left.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I'm driving down the road going like, who is this guy?
How can I help you, ma'am?
I know, because the pattern was
Right.
it would be a heated discussion
Right.
for like a month,
Yep.
and
Yep.
go on and on.
And the other person wants to run that pattern because that's how it's always worked. That's how they get their response, and that's how they get their justification in what they've done.
Yeah.
See, you always do this.
Yeah.
This is always how you act.
Yeah, and it took a lot of pressure off of me. Now, did it resolve the issues within that relationship
No.
in that particular moment? Nope.
Nope.
Later on, it did because
Well-
I had
But it-
control of me,
Right.
control of my faculties, my emotion,
Yep.
and so I was no longer stressed
Right.
physically and no longer stressed
Right.
emotionally.
And it put you in a healthy state.
Yeah,
So that I mean, once you get to that point, and you can keep yourself in that healthy state, let the other person have their chaos.
yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's your brother, your sister, your wife, your
Right.
kids. Doesn't matter. It's their chaos.
Mhm.
Let them own it. You don't have to, and it's okay to walk away. And
Yeah.
I'm just explain. Look, you're screwed up in the head. No, you need to deal with your issue. I'm
Yeah.
not going to, and quite honestly, I'm not going to go to anger, because if I do that, then I'm still giving them
What they want.
What they want.
So after I had that realization, now I removed my body from the situation.
Yeah.
So I own my body.
Yep.
And my brain
Yeah.
said, you can leave now. So my body got in the truck and
Yeah.
left.
Yep.
Now, when that happens, your brain goes with you, right?
Right. Well,
Except
most people.
Yeah, but you can then linger on with that and rehearse it over and over and over. But once you decide it's not yours, give it back to them.
Yep.
And
And
if
let
you
it
have
go.
to, put on some happy music.
Yeah, just let it go.
Go
Don't
to the
dwell
park
on it.
and, do whatever you
Yeah.
do in a park to be happy. Or
Right.
go see
Yeah.
somebody who's positive.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
create the experience that you want. I mean, doesn't dismiss that yes, they're doing these things. Doesn't dismiss that it's bad behavior. Doesn't change that. Is what changes is how you're allowing it to affect you, and you're taking ownership of yourself, which now means that you get to determine the emotional sloth came out again. You get to determine the emotional response you give the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
And even that in and of itself can be a pattern interrupt.
Yeah.
You
Now
know,
keep in mind, go back to the person because, it's going to be a significant other, so you're going to interact again.
Right.
And so you're going to have to do this over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Number one is build this strength inside of you.
Yeah.
Build the strength that I can do this.
Right.
This is who I am.
Right.
And then every time it happens, you do the pattern interrupt.
Yeah.
And it can be a new one.
Right.
Because the next time it happened, I just looked at him and I said, I no longer have these type of conversations.
Right.
And I was like, my body's got to leave. That's
Yep.
inside my head. My body's got to leave so I don't engage in it. And so then I got my truck and
Yep.
drove away again. So
One of my favorite things to do is when that happens, I just say, "That's your rule, not mine."
Yep.
You know.
Yep. Be prepared to defend it,
Yeah.
though. I mean,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So, but
Yeah.
anyway, hopefully this helps.
Yes.
Let us know. Let us know if it helps.
Would love to have the feedback. And
Yeah.
thanks for joining us.
Yeah, and you can get a hold of us by going to our website at 3pointslive.com.
Yep.
and look us up. You can send us an email. You can look at some of our other podcasts. You can read about who we are.
And if you have any questions, leave us a message.
Yeah,
You know, if there's a subject that you'd like us to talk about,
then let us know.
Let us know. Would love to do some specific to you.
Type podcasts.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So until we talk again, have a good day.
And we'll see you next time. Trying to be specific.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.